To move into the most difficult topic, but yes, yet fascinating, we are going to talk about beyond the battle, the impact of conflict on girls' education. And to join us is going to be a wonderful and talented moderator and the news anchor for LCI, and that is Marie, who will be coming in with the most amazing panel. You see them, oh good Lord, they look so gorgeous. They are indeed the light and hope of the women in the most difficult of positions. Let's give them the round of applause as they join us on stage. Thank you, Marie. Appreciate it.
Ladies, gentlemen, it's an honor for me to be in front of you this morning because I'm going to introduce 4 amazing women in a few seconds. And we are going to talk about an issue which resonates with the current news, sad news. War in Ukraine, war in Israel, war in the Palestinian territories. There are so many conflicts right now all around the world. And the consequences for little girls and little boys are terrible. UNICEF reports that 27 million children of primary and lower secondary school age are currently out of school in 24 countries affected by conflict. Girls' education is so vulnerable in conflict situations because, they are already facing greater obstacles than boys. So, what measures can be taken to be sure that girls' access to education is protected during times of war? This session is called Beyond the Battlefield, the impact of conflict on girls' education. So let's welcome these 4 amazing women, 4 amazing fighters, and I think we can applaud them. Nyakim Gatwech, CEO and founder of Balangnyal. Fawzia Koofi, President of Women for Afghanistan. Zoya Lytvyn, Ukrainian educator and founder of Osvitoria, and Soucy, Deputy Head of Education at AFD. Thank you so much for being with us this morning, and thank you for your energy. Let's start with you, Fawzia. You are an Afghan politician, writer, and you fight for women's rights. And you were recently a member of the Afghan delegation negotiating peace with the Taliban. You are the only girl in your family to attend school. You had no example in your close circle of women pursuing and demanding emancipation through education. So what made you fight for your right to education?
Thank you. I think most often we are driven politically and in terms of our values based on our personal experience. So my political vision is motivated by the experience that I have been through. As a child, when I was born, I wasn't a favored daughter. I wasn't supposed to be alive. Like many other girls that are born in this world still, and they're unwanted. My mother didn't want to have another child, another girl, to suffer as much as she suffered. So she put me out, and eventually I survived, and I became her favorite daughter. I became the first from our family to go to school. This is 46 years ago. I became the first girl in our family to go to school. My father was a member of parliament. He established the first school in our area, but he never allowed his own daughters to go to school because he thought he would lose the vote of some of those conservative elements. But then my mother pushed for my education, stood against my brothers and the rest of the family. I went to school. But isn't it heart-wrenching in 21st century that, people talk about AI going to moon, going to, discovering things that are not discovered. And in Afghanistan, girls are not allowed to go to school. Women are not allowed to go to work. And as I was speaking the other day, if there is a shortage of oxygen, probably the Taliban will say women should stop breathing first. Isn't that a huge disparity? And I would like to invite the audience to this. What would happen if instead of women, any religious group or a male group would have the same experience, would be abandoned to any kind of public appearance? What would the world reaction be? Is it going to be as simple, as ignorant, as normal as it is towards the woman in Afghanistan? I'm sure it will not be. So we are living in a very, very still, in a world that still embrace discrimination. The fact that we are here in this beautiful hall, enjoy this luxury, we should not take it for granted. Because as we breathe here, as we talk about our future vision and goal and what we have achieved in the field of AI, education, because I was listening since yesterday to all different panels, and I was like, we are living in two different worlds, right? As we do that, let's remember that there are people for their gender, for being a woman, that they are not even allowed to get out of their homes. And I was talking to a woman the other day in Kabul, and she said, when I go out to the park just to have some oxygen, because I'm bored watching the walls of my home. And the Taliban are looking at me as if you're not allowed to get out of your home. Yeah. You're not allowed to go work, and you're not allowed to go to university. Why are you in the public? And the eyes, she was telling me, the eyes of the Taliban was like a bullet, much stronger than a bullet, because we often heal with the wounds. I was attacked twice by Taliban. My wounds are healed. But I will never be healed with the suffering that my sisters in Afghanistan are undergoing for being a woman.
So impressive. You are also impressive, Nyakim. You were born in a refugee camp in Dima, Ethiopia, after your mother and father were separated in South Sudan amid conflict in the region. And this very difficult situation didn't prevent you from becoming a famous and amazing model. And you launched your non-profit organization, Balangnyal, to help young girls in refugee camps. What kind of barriers are girls facing today to access education in Sudan?
There's quite a bit. I am from South Sudan, like you said, but I went home recently just because of this particular reason. And I spoke to thousands of girls just to ask them what kind of barrier are they facing, what are they lacking. And the answer that I have received from them were very, very shocking. And one of the first things that they told me was that the lack of personal care, and saying that girls are too often forced to get married at a young age, asked to be dropped out of school because they need to be home helping their parent with house chores. I myself was a victim of this because I came to America at the age of 15 years old. I didn't get to go to school until I was 14. And just because I was a girl, growing up home, my brother get to go to school, my older brother get to go to school. I didn't get to go to school because I had to stay home and help my mom and cook for my brother and clean their clothes, make sure that everyone is taken care of. And then, so that itself, when I came to America and I realized that the power of education for women, you can make something out of yourself. You don't have to depend on men, because in our culture, they raise you, and then when you reach a certain age, you get married to a man, and the man would be to take care of you. I was like, I can take care of myself. Just because I'm a woman, that doesn't mean I can. So when I came to America, even though I started at a very, very old age, 14 years old, school was really hard for me. But I worked extra hard to make sure that I get my education and to make sure that I go back home and tell these girls anything is possible. And I feel like there's so many things that have been, there's taboo topics that are happening back home that they don't want us to discuss. As a woman, you're told to be quiet, to not use your voice. And I feel like my mother always told me that she didn't go to school. My sibling and I are the first generation to go to school. But my mother, she's a very wise woman, always told me that your voice is the most powerful weapon a woman can have. And find your voice and use it. So I was able to find my voice, and I went back home and spoke to these girls and let them know that we are more than just a housewife. We're more than just what they think we are. So I feel like that's I don't know if I answered.
Yeah, and you did it. You did it. You did it. Very impressive. Zoya, you are also an amazing woman. You are a Ukrainian educator and activist. You work to improve education by providing equal access, training teachers, and implementing know-hows. And you were awarded by President Zelensky and the UN. You promote new ways of teaching. Since the beginning of the war in Ukraine, what has changed?
Wow, frankly speaking, everything has changed, personally and professionally, and it's 180 degrees change that we didn't choose to be in. And if I speak about biggest professional challenge for me and my team is the fact that we are not the innovators anymore. We're not creators of positive change because we had to switch into different mode of crisis management 24/7, now almost for 2 years in a row. And it's quite difficult. And if we speak about the change on the level of the school system in Ukraine, then I would say first and the biggest change and challenge is the access to quality education. This school year is a little bit better than the previous one, so we have 42% of Ukrainian schools finally working face-to-face. We have 30% that don't work at all because they are destroyed or damaged, or they are too close to the front line, so even after alarms goes on, kids don't have enough time to run to the bomb shelter. Or they don't have bomb shelter, that's why kids can't go there, it's unsafe. And 30% that work only remotely, digitally. And we all know, thanks to World Bank, that 1 year of digital education is minus 10% of future income of our kids. So access is number one. Number two is learning loss, I would say. Now, our teachers have children in classrooms, like one child just escaped the occupation with his family and he was not learning for a year. Another child relocated back from Poland with mom to reunite with the family, and he was in a completely different educational system. And another child on different levels. So it's very mixed up, diverse classrooms, and teachers were not so prepared to work with them, and we had to help teachers and support them. But the biggest support is mental health, because under these circumstances, when all children, all teachers, they witness trauma, they went through trauma, how can you teach those kids math or English or chemistry when they have someone passed away in their family, someone killed, when missiles are coming over their head? Like, one of my projects is K-12 school in Ukraine, and within the last year we had 16 deaths in the families of our children, and we're like 320 kids at the moment. Last week I was on a funeral of the son of my teacher colleague, and those teachers, they need to take care about themselves, then to support kids and their families in their classrooms and even their colleagues. So that's the biggest challenge, and it's very important because schools should be a safe space for those kids. They should be a healing zone where kids could keep coming despite everything, where they could keep teaching even from the bomb shelters. Because, you know, by continuing to learn, those kids and those teachers, they are also fighting for their freedom and for their future and for this ability to build their future in their own way.
And I'm sure that Méliyi children are grateful for all that you are doing. And you're also a fighter. You fight for girls' education. You devoted your entire career to international relations, notably with the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Secretary General of the Prime Minister. What is your role and how do you approach this issue?
Thank you, Mary. Let me please first say how honored and pleased I am to talk with you ladies. You are really impressive, and I think you are the best testimony of what education can do to change the world.
Of course.
Thank you. I'm only sitting here because I work at a donor, the French Development Agency. It's the oldest development agency in the world. It was created during World War II, so we are quite familiar with conflicts, if I may say. Our role is to contribute to the achievement of SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. To my children, I say our role is to try to make the world better. And to make the world better, it goes through education. I won't say again the sentence of Mr. Mandela, because you've heard it so many times, I think yesterday already, but we are really convinced at AFD that education is the best vector to prevent conflicts and to resolve conflicts. So what we try to do is to make tailor-made projects. Each of you come from different countries with different histories, and the contexts are different, the conflicts are different. So we try to have an integrated approach. Sorry for these technical terms, but it means that we can not only focus on education as itself. Children have to have health, food, infrastructure, security, as you said, sport, everything that surrounds education and that makes it possible for them to develop. So we try to have this integrated approach with all the different factors that can help to develop the education in the best conditions. The other specificity I wanted to mention is that we have a gender approach, not a girls-orientated approach. It's very important to have girls and boys together. I think Afghanistan is a very important example for this. We have to take advantage of the boys being in school with the girls to make of them also ambassadors of the girls' cause, to work together on masculinities, and to try to have the whole way of thinking of a society oriented into gender and education of all. So these are maybe the two main characteristics of our action. We financed about 600 million euros of education project last year, mainly in Africa and Francophone French-speaking countries. But conflicts are all over the world, and we try to support NGOs that work in Afghanistan, in Ukraine, of course, in all the African countries. There's so much to do, so this mobilization and your testimony are just crucial for us to keep on.
And your work also, Anne, and we can applaud you for that. Fawzia, we are in 2023 and the Taliban are back in power, while the girls are not allowed to pursue an education. A lot of people around the world wonder what they can do to help change this. Is there a solution?
Absolutely. I still believe that the world can change the situation because the world paved the way for Taliban return. If there was no deal with Taliban signed on the 29th of February 2020, Taliban fought for 20 years, and in 20 years they were not able to capture one district or province. But after they signed the deal with the United States, which in that deal there was no woman. So we're talking about women, peace and security, but there was no woman involvement during those negotiations. And when we were knocking the doors of all the diplomats, asking for our inclusion, because this was a conflict that women were the main victim. Women are actually the main victim of all conflicts, right? So when we were knocking for a seat on the table, we were told that when not much major decisions are made, when we make the decision, we will involve you. And our argument was that let us decide on our behalf. Don't decide on the behalf of women, because the women issues are very different, and only them, their presence can make a difference. So there was no woman in the negotiation. And that's why Taliban were making nice statements during the negotiation. I was negotiating with them. They were saying women can be ministers, foreign minister, prime minister, can be into business, social activities, etc. But on the contrary, after they signed the deal with Americans, and then I went to official negotiation with them, they were changed completely. Their perspectives were changed because they wanted to have that deal. And when they got to power, 15th of August, 17th of September, like a month later, they issued an edict that women beyond grade 6, secondary, cannot come to school. And I had a school in front of my house where I could see girls go every morning with their black and white uniforms. No longer they could go. Breathing was difficult for me because it was for me also personal. After 20 years, why women are always used as a tool for politics and for war? Why women are the victim of not only war, but the victim of wrong political peace deals as well. So it's not only war that victimizes women, but sometimes even the wrong political peace deals. Because peace is not a political agreement. It's a social agreement. You have to have a social cohesion. People should accept it. There should be an understanding of what peace means. So then they banned secondary girls from going to school. And they stopped women, that there is still continued protest. Women risk their lives. Those who protest, they put them in prison, they torture them. I don't know about their whereabouts. I am only in contact with their family members. Sometimes they also imprison their family members as well. So not only the women pay the price, but also the family members. I don't know how long this will last. And that makes it even more painful because, we empowered the generation for 20 years. The country transformed. Yes, there were problems, there was corruption, there was war, but at least there was a societal transformation. Young generation were involved in technology, in media, in entrepreneurship, in politics, etc. And all of a sudden, we went back to scratch. And we are in a position where, as I said before, women cannot do anything. They're erased. Because these dictators are afraid of women's power. It's a political issue. It has nothing to do with Islam. It has nothing to do with our religion. Because Afghanistan is the only Muslim country in the world where women are not allowed to go to school and university and work under the name of religion. On the contrary, actually Islam promotes education. It says, Iqra means read. The first verse, read. From reading and writing. But Taliban use the same religion to imprison women just because of their power, because they don't want a woman, an educated woman who is politically and socially independent, who is economically independent, who can access resources, will challenge Taliban's ideology. This is what I did when I was in the negotiation. I said, tell me, show me where in Quran it says women cannot go to school. And education is stopped for them. Education is prohibited, show me. And they had no reference. So they think an uneducated woman will be able to obey them further. And I think it's not only in Afghanistan, it's global phenomenon. They think, an empowered woman, a woman who is financially independent, a woman who is in a position of power, be it in public, private, whatever sector it is, they will not accept the patriarchy. That's why they try to, bring whatever reasons they want to exclude women. Yes, probably the extent of the issue is different in Afghanistan. It's extreme, the most extreme apartheid we are seeing in our century, gender apartheid. But in France, it happens. In the United States, it happens. In the UN, it happens. How many United States presidents are actually women? In the history, how many UN secretary generals are women? How many leaders of world are women? Only 18 countries are led by women. The index shows, yes, as it is getting better in some areas, thanks to media, digitalization, AI, but it's getting worse in many other areas. So therefore, it's a global phenomenon. Things can change simply. First of all, on a political level, I think we have to really hold Taliban accountable for what they do, because they are doing things that they that say otherwise during negotiation. Secondly, everyone talks about Afghan women and their education. I was speaking in the UN during the General Assembly, and I offered this to the foreign ministers and dignitaries and people who were in charge. And I'm glad that Anna is here and many others who can contribute. I offered them, I said, can you provide 10,000 scholarship for women inside Afghanistan to leave Afghanistan and come and continue their education? Simple. practical, 10,000 scholarship for bachelor's degree. After they graduate, in 4 years' time, hopefully either the Taliban will be dissolved or the situation will be different. So they can go back to their country. We are providing education to girls in grade 12 in different parts of Afghanistan. Whoever in this audience is volunteer to teach them French, English, whatever language, please contact me because I can put you in touch with these girls. It's not only a skill that they are learning, but also for their mental health. The moment that they know that they are in contact with another human being and they are not completely abandoned and forgotten, that is a mental health, because mental health is a big issue now in Afghanistan. There is a huge number of, tendency to suicide attack. Obviously, anybody would do that when you are regarded as no class citizen for your gender, and the world think it's okay, it's normal, Taliban will change. How many years do women of Afghanistan should pay the price for Taliban perspective to change? I think it's time for us to hold our own governments accountable and tell them, what are you doing to the situation in Afghanistan? Because it's a global phenomenon. It's not a cultural issue, it's not a religious issue, it's a power issue. So in power issue, as a global community, what can we do? Because every time there is a conflict, Ukraine, awful war, Iranian issue, which we have huge solidarity with the women there. They are our heroes and pioneers. Then now Israel-Palestine, Afghanistan is there in the headlines, not making any headlines. And that even further emboldened Taliban to do whatever they want to do.
Yes, it's up to all of us to change the situation. Nyakim.
You want me to follow that?
Yes. You have created Balangnyal to support women and girls who suffer, who lack of so many things. Can you tell us more about your commitment?
Yeah. So I started Balangnyal Foundation 2 years ago. And that the reason I started Balangnyal Foundation is because it's something very personal and close to me. Because like you said before, I was born in a refugee camp in Ethiopia. My family flee South Sudan in 1992 before I was born because of civil war. And growing up in a refugee camp, as you all can imagine, is the hardest thing ever. And when it was that time, that cycle of the month for me as a woman, I didn't have access to personal care item. I didn't have access to pad things that women need on a daily basis. So when I came to America, of course, I faced my struggle, in the modeling industry, discrimination against, in school, falling behind or, not being able to read or write, at an older age. So when I was able to be in a position that I took care of myself, I could take care of my family, then I was like, I could do better than this. So I thought about Balangnyal. I thought about the little girl that was struggling back home. Then I was like, there's so many of them that look like me, that are in the same position right now, that need my help. Although I might not be able to help each and every one of them, I can make a little change. So I started Balangnyal, and my main focus on Balangnyal was providing personal care items to these girls. Because I was like, that is something that I struggle with. So when I was able to collaborate with a brand that I work with in my modeling industry, and I went back home last year and donated 20,000 undergarment pad and thing that they need. But instead of just sending them, I wanted to go myself so they could see that, because there's something powerful about a success story. So me going back and standing in front of all these girls and showing them that I was in your position once upon a time, and I'm here now, and you can too. So me going back, that was something that I thought that I needed to get done. So Balangnyal, my main focus with it was to just provide personal care item. But when I went back home, I discovered something way more than that. I discovered that girl education lacks so much. And I'm like, this is more than just personal item. I spoke to them. I spoke to each and every one of them, and I was like, what is needed? And then I heard that girl, back in the camp that I grew up at, electricity is not consistent, right? There's so many home. So when girls will go to school, by the time they come home, they have to drop their books and their homeworks, and they have to go do house chores. And by the time they're done with that, the sun is down and there's no light. So they told me that if you can get flashlights so we can be able to read and do our homework and be able to keep up with school, because they don't have that. When it's dark outside and there's no electricity, then they're not able to read or write. And by the time when they go to school, they're falling behind. And now, when you keep repeating the same grade over and over again, you lose courage. You lose interest. It's like you just end up dropping out. So my goal is to make sure that I go back and give them what they need, and be like just inspiring them. It's flashlight, it's whatever I can donate or however I can inspire these girls with Balangnyal. That's my main goal to them.
Wow. So impressive. Zoya, there have been a lot of challenges in Ukraine from COVID to war. What kind of lesson did you learn about education as a tool?
I would name 3 main lessons, and the first one, and try to mention the genius phrase of Nelson Mandela: education is the most powerful weapon to change the world. And I always thought it's a positive change. And now I understand that in the hands of the enemy, of the dictator, education is also a weapon. And it is a weapon to create propaganda, to spread hatred. And enemy knows that education is crucial, and enemy can use this weapon not for a positive change. And for example, Ukrainian schools, they were the first targets for Russian missiles. Ukrainian teachers were on the lists of those people who were first kidnapped by invaders, and Russian soldiers entering towns or villages were having those lists. They were visiting school and nursery teachers. And they were putting the libraries on fire. And if we speak about Ukraine now, we have 3,500 schools critically damaged and 365 schools completely destroyed. And, it's like all the schools of Estonia, the European educational super country, that we don't have anymore. And it means they know education is crucial. My second lesson is my personal, and it's something my grandma told me in my childhood. She told me, Zoya, education is the only unassailable treasure that no one can take from you until you're alive. But I never thought I would feel it with my own skin. And, even fleeing Ukraine with 2 kids, panicking and frightened, the first time feeling like a victim, not like a strong woman. But I really knew that with my knowledge, with skills, with education, if you could have this quality education, you will be always able to find your place, to keep working, keep creating positive change, and support your kids and your family. And the third lesson, despite all the obstacles that we have now, despite million challenges to continue education, education cannot be paused. And it's even more important to support and continue learning during the war. And because, kids, they are only 15% of global population, but they are 100% of our future. And education is the only tool that helps us to bring up better leaders of tomorrow, inspired and empowered children that will create better economy, environment, and society. And I'm happy that all the NGO leaders in Ukraine, government, and even parents, they are really united in this effort to do everything possible so that kids could keep learning and teachers could keep teaching, even from bomb shelters, even with all that blackouts. And for example, one of initiatives that me and my NGO did for government, it was during the COVID pandemics that you mentioned, and it's all Ukrainian school online. So it covers the entire secondary school curriculum, and it brings every child in front of our very best teachers. And at the beginning of the Russian invasion, we had 500,000 kids learning on that platform, because for many of them it was the only possible way to keep learning. And now we have 2 million of active learners from all over the world, connecting from 120 countries, continuing learning, like even if they're abroad, keeping this bridge between them and their country. And I am very inspired with those kids, and some of them are in 2 schools, some of them like in, Canada or France, and they have this second school every day to keep learning, or they keep learning in Ukraine somewhere on the front line. And I'm very proud of this project and its results.
Yeah. And you do also a great job. Can you explain how do you set a project to ensure girls' right to education in conflict-affected countries or areas?
As I said, it's really tailor-made project because every situation is different, and I think your testimonies confirm this. So what we try to do is to have locally based solutions. So the first thing is to understand the situation. Why do girls not go to school anymore? Is it because of security reason? Is it because of social norm? Is it because of tradition, of quality and access to schools? So first of all, understand, and for this we also use the support of research. And for instance, we found out that in Côte d'Ivoire, girls don't go to school because the parents are afraid to send them far away from home because they have to take the transport or walk, and it's a danger for their security. While in other countries, it's in Central Africa, for instance, they don't have the example of women going to school and teaching at school, so we set up a program to form teachers, women, and directors of schools, women. So every situation is different, and we try to have this local knowledge in order to be the most impactful and to work also with those who are locally implanted and who have this knowledge of the field where we're going to work. So mainly NGOs. Unfortunately, in conflict countries, we cannot work anymore with governments, either because we don't want to, we're not allowed to, or because they just don't have any capacities anymore. So we work with NGOs, international NGOs, French NGOs, and more local NGOs, because again, you have the technical expertise, the knowledge, and the network of people we want to reach. So tailor-made, context, solutions, and trying to have the most impact by working with those who really know what is going on the field.
And do you have threats?
Do I have what?
Threats. Menace, threats.
Sorry.
Sorry for my accent.
No, sorry, no. I don't have, of course not, but the one we work with, and I was telling you about Afghanistan, notably, we work with a Franco-Afghan association that makes learning for teachers in Afghanistan online, as you just mentioned, also for Ukraine, because it's a little hope remains on the fact that we can still reach people in Afghanistan through the net. So giving them lessons is something we can do and keep on doing. But these people, I can't even mention their name today because it's dangerous for them. It's dangerous, yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your fights with us. I think you can applaud them. Thank you very much.